So let's have a look at the second part of Michael's description of this use of diagram for cats and dogs and charisma and fallow. I think it's really useful to understand where we sit, in which position we usually sit with regards to our behaviours. And so I like to describe this into working out how we move from one position to another. So I speak personally, but I know that I sit with my usual behaviours on the high dog side of the equation. So I'm down in that bottom left-hand corner, and I used to struggle with how to get on with that high position, the cats in the world, the top right-hand corner. But I know that my best communication, when I'm at my best, I am communicating with charisma. So I needed a way to get in from moving from the dog position, the person, into the cat, and then into charisma. You can't simply just jump from one place to another. So if you sit on the high cat side with your usual behaviors, it's not just as simple as just jumping straight through into charisma. You've got to then do what the dogs do. So the way that I usually describe this is to say, well, if you sit down on the high dog side, like myself, with your usual behaviors, you've got to do more of what the cats do in order to move to that top left-hand side charisma. And if you sit on the high cat side, you've got to do what the high dogs do in order to sit on that top left-hand side. To give you a little example of this, if I'm communicating with charisma, then rather than, or if I'm listening with charisma and I'm looking to be important, or I'm looking to have that charisma as I just sit and listen to somebody, I do what the cats do, and I stop nodding my head. I stop making those sounds, those noises, the the oh yes, I see what you mean, yes, I agree, yes, isn't that good? I stop all of that because that's what the cats don't do. Whereas the cats, if they're communicating with a high dog person, or they're communicating with charisma, then they want to add in some of those little nods, add in some of those little sounds that we make as high dogs when we are listening, with the intent behind those sounds and those nods is to show that we are engaged in that conversation. Whereas some higher cats, they tend not to have those gestures, and therefore for the higher dog positions, we kind of feel like they're not really listening or not engaged within us, within our conversation. And so the cats need to do more of what the dogs do, and the dogs need to do more of what the cats do in order to meet on that middle line charisma. Now there is another line that Michael talks about in his books, but not on his videos, that I find really useful, especially in the world of business when I'm thinking about sales and negotiation. And that is that line there that I'm showing you on the screen. It goes from the high dog, so down on the bottom left-hand side, up to the high cats up on the top right-hand side. And we call that line the cart line. So cart is C-A-R-T. And what we mean by C-A-R-T, as you can see from the arrow, it goes up towards the cats. At the top of the arrow there, the red arrow that I've got on your screen, we talk about people being more pioneering. So the pioneers. And now that's not to say that someone like President Putin is a pioneer as such, but you tend to find people that sit on the higher cat side with their behaviors, they tend to be more pioneering than those that sit on the higher dog side, that sit more with, we call those people the settlers. So they tend to like to be given the rules, if you like, or given the task, and as long as they're given treats for accomplishing that task really well, then they're quite happy to settle in that job or in that position. Whereas the cats, you'll give them the rules and regulations and they'll try and bend it as far as possible. So more the pioneers than the settlers. So what CART simply stands for is challenge for the C, A is ambition, R is risk, and T for tension. So those that sit on the higher cat side position, they like more challenge, ambition, risk and tension than those that sit on the dog side. They like less challenge, ambition, risk and tension in their life. Now, if you think about that from a products and services perspective, especially some of the work that I do with groups like SJP or some of the insurance companies, they tend to be able to work out what their customers are more likely to buy with regards to riskier products and services from the financial world than those that have less risk with them. So if you think about stocks and shares as an example, the higher risk stocks and shares will more likely sell to those cats than the dogs. The lower risk stocks and shares, so those that go for maybe more government bonds, etc., would be more of a dog type of person, or certainly with dog type behaviors. They like less challenge, ambition, risk and tension in their world. I hope that makes sense.